Do you think I can design a pattern using a completely randomly generated color palette? Well, that's today's challenge. I put it up on my Patreon to vote on what my next article and or video would be, and this is what you guys voted for. Well, technically you voted for me to take a break, but I will do that next month. Instead, I'm going to play around with colors. So the prompt was, if I were to randomly generate a color palette of, say, 10 to 12 colors, would I be able to design a cohesive pattern using just those colors? Plus black and white, because I don't hate myself that much. Definitely a silly thing, but hey, y'all get a bonus freebie because I'm going to give you the pattern afterwards, and you can do with it what you will. So here's the task. I'm going to bring up my Cosmo checklist, because we're going to be playing with Cosmo colors. I'll, of course, include the DMC equivalents. It's fine. And I'm going to bring up the Google number generator. I will include a link below to this checklist and all the other Cosmo resources I have. If you would like to try Cosmo yourself, that includes things like where to buy it, and this checklist, and PCStitch files if you use PCStitch to design your patterns. All sorts of stuff, so be sure to check that out below. I will be generating a number between 1 and 539. If it lands on 1, that is the header. We skip that. If it lands on a discontinued color, I will roll again. And to make it extra random, let's sort it by color name. And now it's nice and chaotic. Because I've got a few different sorts here. We can sort by color, which puts everything in a nice gradient. We can sort by color, which is mostly gradients, but then down at the bottom it gets kind of chaotic because the way the Cosmo colors work, the thousands are for numbers that fall between. Like we have 261, 262, 262, 263, etc. Like that's how they fit in there. So when you sort them by number, all of those middle colors that were created to complete a gradient, they just kind of sink to the bottom. So I would always recommend it, at least with Cosmo, sorting them by actual color. But for extra chaos, we're going to go color name, like I said. And I mentioned earlier, but we're including black and white because, yeah, at least that way I can do black borders if I need to, or highlights or outlines. We at least have one dark and one highlight value. So I'm going to generate, I don't know, 12 of these, and we'll see what we get. 402. I don't know if you can actually see. Here we go. I'm using these numbers over on the side here. So let's go down to 402. Parsley green. Interesting start. All right, 159. Dark shadow. Well, we have a dark palette so far. We got plenty of time to turn that around though. 484. Sun-kissed orange. Yep. Oh. We could do a seasons, but maybe not for this round. Maybe in another random palette we can throw in some seasons. Oh, we got white. Since I already have white on here, I'm just going to skip it and we're going to go for 11 colors total. 251. India ink. All right. 201 is fawn. Pretty, like, purpley mauve color. 374. What is that? Oatmeal. Nope. I keep wanting to switch tabs rather than... With the oatmeal on there, we should probably... Well... What fabric is this going to go on? All right, well, 211, what's that? That's a pretty green. 9. Amber glow, just missed the discontinued. We'll do one more. 84. Candy pink. All right. We've got 11 colors since we drew white. That is an interesting color palette for sure. Well, let's pull the skeins from my collection and we'll see what we've got to work with in person. Here is our randomly generated color palette. Currently it's in numerical order. Let's put it in more of an order that makes sense. We have our black and the dark gray to shade that. We have our white and our oatmeal to shade that. And then we've got, we've got 2 orangey colors, so we could use that as a color with a highlight. And we've got 2 greenish colors, but they're very different greens, so we're probably going to incorporate some sort of plants there. And then we have 2 pinky purple shades. I could use that as like a shadow to this brighter pink, but I might have to use that as 2 separate colors. We'll see. And we have randomly blue. Very interesting. I'm not sure what to do here. I'm gonna have to think on it a little bit. We've got a few days before I need to get this out to my patrons, so tell me down in the comments what you would do with this palette. It won't help because this won't be out until a couple of weeks from now, but I am curious what you would do with it. I, of course, then forgot to record my sketch session, so we're just going to gloss over the fact that I have no footage of this and go straight on into turning this into pixel art. Alright, the next part of my process is to bring my sketch into Pixel Edit, which is my preferred pixel editing program. I've resized the photo I took of my little thumbnails down to 50 by 50 because that's the size I want this pattern to be. And as you can tell, it's just a blurry mess, but that's fine because we're going to draw over it. I also have in here one of the mushroom ones just in case the bird becomes too hard or what have you. But I just have them on their own separate layer, and this is why I love Pixel Edit, because PCStitch and such doesn't really have layers, and they're so useful. So basically what I'm going to be doing is tracing my sketch, but then editing it to fit pixel proportions. You'll see I also brought in my color palette using the swatches from my spreadsheet. They're not perfect, but they'll do well enough to remember what colors I'm meant to be using. Alright, one thing to note, this program is you generally want to use this 1 pix setting. The difference between that is here it is normally when you draw with the line, and here it is with the 1 pixel setting. See how less jaggedy it is? So that'll help. I do draw with a mouse. I don't have, well, I do have a tablet, but I can't draw with it, so that's fine. Oh, and you can't see it, but I do have a reference of this rose-breasted grosbeak over on my other monitor. I'm just gonna do some outlining and then I'll come back to chat with you about my process. I kind of hate it. But to be fair, I have not been feeling super artistic lately. As you saw, I've been switching colors and rearranging things. He's got his little feetsies, and I've got a few different layers. So that if I needed to, I can move things around easily. But I'm not digging the flowers. The bird is okay. I normally shade in 3s, so if anything, I would have like a color between these two in order to like shade his little wings and head better, so it's not as stark. Something like that. Probably down into this. Yeah. But I don't have that color, so no shading for me. Which is, I think, partially what's making me not like it as much. Because I don't have as many colors to work with as I usually do. And I mean, if I randomized another color, it would probably be like bright magenta or something, knowing my luck. So I'm not going to do that. So I'm going to pivot and actually try the mushrooms and see if I like that better. And this is all kind of part of the process. You don't necessarily like everything that you make. In fact, I very frequently do not like what I make. That is normal. So let's spend some time with these mushrooms, and I'll check back in again in a bit. Okay, yeah, I'm feeling a lot better about that. Obviously the background color can be anything since it's the fabric. But I think the main thing that helped this time was that bold black outline that I've been such a fan of lately. And that's one way to tie it all together. Don't know how I feel about the grass necessarily, but it does work. I could keep poking at it forever though. It will never be 100%, and at some point you just gotta stop fucking with it. So let's export the image. I'm gonna pixel scale it as 1 just because the 1. And the next thing we're gonna do is open it up in PCStitch. Alright, so I use PCStitch 10 because I like the UI better, but you can get that into PCStitch 11 by switching over to Classic View. That said, the screenshots on the tutorial on my website about how to use PCStitch are from wow, I can't say that. PCStitch 11. So if you use 11, I will leave a link down below to that article. So I've basically gone over through most of this process in that article before, but let's go through it together here. So I'm going to go down to import, I'm going to browse, and then I'm going to cut to the next part so that you don't see the other stuff I have in that folder, because spoilers. Okay, so I've selected my file. Make sure that your pixel art is just 1 pixel. I know that sounds silly, but if it's been resized at all, it will not work well. I always show preview, and you'll notice that right away it's trying to blow it up, which again, resizing, bad idea. So you do want to switch over to the size tab and make sure that this number up here matches down here. And then in this case, it's defaulting to the DMC, which normally is what I use, but since we're using Cosmo today, we'll use that. And if your PCStitch does not have Cosmo listed, that's because it is not default. I made this file myself, and you can get that from my website as well, from the Cosmo list. So most of these settings I don't really use all that much, because it'd be like if you were adjusting the brightness of a photo, or if you wanted to use a specific amount of colors, that sort of thing. But for now, the other thing to note is because I used the exact color values that are in the Lesson Cosmo file, it should automatically pull those correct colors. However, if you just do pixel art on its own without using the colors that PCStitch has down for the DMC, it's going to give you its best effort. I have a folder called PCStitch Y with some of my favorite attempts at importing colors and getting something completely different from PCStitch. So if it doesn't look right in this preview, that's okay. I usually manually go in and change those colors to the ones I want anyway. Now in this example, I won't be doing that because we picked the colors in advance. One of the first things I do like to do is first of all remove your background color. Do not try importing pixel art with transparent backgrounds, as it will turn that background black, and if you have a black border, that doesn't end well. But for now, let's go ahead and remove that background color. The next thing I like to do is change the symbols. Down here you can switch over to the symbol tab. Now certain things I pretty much always do, like a heart is going to be a red color, a clover, I like the other clover, this one is usually going to be a green. And then I also try to weight my symbols based on the color, if that makes sense. Let me give you a good example. So for white, or I guess a light color, I'm going to use thinner symbols. Then for a dark color like the black, I'll probably use, actually let's do, we also want to make sure that these symbols are very distinct from each other. We don't want them blending too much together. And I will spend an unreasonable amount of time on this, if you let me. And most designers have favorite color, or favorite symbols, and favorite colors for that matter. So you'll kind of learn that over time. And one thing I like to do is switch over to black and white mode so you can see if any of them are a little bit too close. So in this case, black, let's do the dark square. That might be better. These two are a little similar. Let's find a medium weight symbol for blue, maybe. That kind of looks too much like that. Maybe a star? Yeah, that should work. But that way you can still kind of see the general shape of the pattern even in black and white. If that makes sense. I don't really like using the full square just because in color mode it's mostly white. But I might do like a L or that dot. That's usually the one I end up leaning towards, but it's harder to see in the black and white. Yeah, black square it is. All right. Well, moving on. The other thing I like to do is go to each one and highlight. Cream is maybe a bad choice for demonstrating, but this gives you an idea of all of the stitches of a single color. And the reason I do that is because if there's any single stitches off by themselves that don't need to be, I try to cut those out or edit it. In this case, those are kind of necessary for the stars, but sometimes it looks like I did pretty good this time. Sometimes there's just that 1 or 2 stitches of the color a little too far away that just don't make sense. What else? Normally, I would be going through my physical thread collection and double checking that those are the colors I want to use. And if I need a darker or lighter, like for example, these 2 reds might be a little bit too much contrast between the 2. So I might pull out my actual thread and decide that maybe 3/4-3 would be a little bit closer, and would replace that. And it'll change it to that color. Or maybe I wanted to change it entirely to a different color and change them both to be blue. I don't know. So feel free to mess around with that as you go. But since we, again, pre-generated this palette, I'm not going to mess with it. I do always go into the user design sort and sort by manufacturer ID. Because Cosmo has numbers that end in A, they get sunk to the bottom. So I can actually manually move this up the list so that it goes in the right order. Putting them in numerical order is nice for those who store their bobbins by color, which is most people from what I know. Once you got all your colors sorted, we're going to export. I export to an image file, and you can actually like generate a PDF from here, but I usually do that separately. So we're going to save this image, and I'm going to skip ahead. So again, you can't see what's in my other folders. All right. From here, you can also save a black and white version. And you can save the legend, or you can save like a mock-up that you can then use to show what it might look like stitched. Now, normally I would go test this, and that's pretty much it. I am now going to copy these into a PDF template that I have made previously for my files. Actually, let me bring that up. I now typically open one of my previous patterns and save as and save it. So then I'll go through and replace them. Now I do not have the time to test stitch this one, unfortunately, so I will not be, but having this pre-made template makes it really nice to just swap out what you need to. And this, by the way, is a free pattern that's up on my Ko-fi, the Vampire the Masquerade clans. And I'll just go through here and switch it all out, and I'll have it available on the website for you. include both the black and white and the color one. And that's done. What did you think? How did it come out? I kind of like it. I don't love it, and I definitely didn't like that first attempt. But I've been in kind of an art rut lately anyway, so this was a nice fun challenge to get the creative juices flowing, even if not 100%. I definitely recommend it to try just as a fun challenge or as an excuse to get out of an art block. Will I do this regularly? No, probably not. But you know, it was fun. It was good to be able to show you some of my process. Obviously, I didn't show you how I normally pick colors, but you got the general idea of how I go about designing patterns, which is fun. Sorry if this video seems kind of all over the place. I'm a bit scatterbrained lately, and part of that is, if you haven't noticed from the change in background, I'm moving. So I've spent the last few weeks packing mostly. I still have a lot to pack in this room. I've mostly packed up my craft supplies. The only things that are still out are the stuff that I need to continue printing DMC sticker labels or bobbin labels and floss drop labels for different brands so that I'm still earning income until I move. But it's been chaos. So if you don't hear from me in a bit and you haven't heard from me in the last month, that's why. Sorry, hopefully after I get all settled into the new place, I can get back on a semi-regular posting schedule. I don't know. Regardless, if you would like to stitch the pattern that I made today, I will have the article linked down below where you can download it from. You can also check out my Ko-fi. There's lots of free patterns on there that were not randomly generated and might be better suited. And if you'd like to support my move, check out my Etsy or Patreon, or just leave me a tip on Ko-fi. That's up to you. I'm not going to force you to do anything. I'm going to be doing it regardless. So, thank you so much for hanging out with me today, and whatever you do decide to do next, keep creating.